My name is Abhishek Kunduru. I'm Chief Data Architect at Anblicks. In today's webinar, we are going to cover three main topics, right? I would say why, how, and what, right? So meaning why migrate from Hadoop to Snowflake and how to accelerate that migration using the Anblicks H2S tool and a live demo of the tool as well. And the third point is a what, right? So what is the underlying architecture, right? And most importantly, what are the best practices to do the migration? So we'll be covering these three topics. So I was just a brief background about me and company Anblicks, right? So I was an Hadoop developer for majority of the last 10 years, building Hive Impala warehouses, writing MapReduce and Spark jobs, before embracing cloud native technologies, both company and as well as I. So with the experience of implementing multiple large scale Hadoop implementations, I can say it is complex, costly, and risk prone. I can totally, the attendees here, right, in the webinar, the people that have worked on Hadoop, I'm pretty sure they can vouch for it. Broadly, challenges can be categorized into three groups. One is the reliability and performance. The second one is the flexibility, and the third one is the productivity, right? So when it comes to reliability and performance, there is no proper schema enforcement or schema evolution, right? Because most of the Hadoop implementations use a flavor of Parquet or Avro or ORC. And because of that, more often than not, you would end up with inconsistent schemas, and there is no rollbacks. So you would need to manually salvage corrupt data, which is a very, very painstaking process, right? And when it comes to flexibility, once Hadoop cluster is created, it is set in stone. So scaling up or scaling out as very long procurement cycles. Because of that, you would be very unresponsive to business needs, because in this ever-changing business world, right? So you need to be very agile, and you need to react very fast to your fast changing business needs. So, and Hadoop would prevent you from doing that. And when it comes to productivity, and Hadoop is very complex and expensive to maintain, so it has it needs kind of PhD guys, right? Hadoop admins, big data engineers to keep the lights up and running. So, and I have seen, both, Anblicks, as well as I have seen some companies taking more than a year to just upgrade from one version of Hadoop to another, right? Like from version 5 to 6, it may take like more than a year kind of thing, right? So, given all these challenges, to our rescue, Snowflake pretty much addresses all these challenges, and it not only addresses these challenges, it provides additional features on top of it, right? So mainly it eradicates all the complexities you face with a typical big data platform, right? And one of my favorite features, which Jonathan has covered briefly in the previous slide, is a near zero maintenance. It self-heals, auto partitions, auto clusters, auto caches all your data, so that you can focus on deriving the valuable business insights rather than spending day in, day out managing the platform, right? So, and scaling up or down or scaling in or out is a single click away, and it just takes few seconds, right? And one of the very, very powerful features we have implemented at several of our clients is a data sharing, right? So it is such a powerful feature where without writing and maintaining expensive ETL routines, you can securely share data with your partners and other business units. So imagine the power it brings, right? Where you can avoid investing a lot of money building ETL routines, and it's not only initial investment, you need to maintain those ETL routines, right? So you can avoid all of that and then just share all your data, whether it be few rows in a table or few columns in a table. If you can write a SQL, you can share that data. So given all the reasons, we just discussed, right? We have built a solution called H2S. It's a very intuitive push button migration tool to accelerate your migration from Hadoop to Snowflake, right? And leveraging this tool, you could save up to 40% of your costs and 60% of your time, right? In migrating. So this is based on our experience leveraging this tool at several of our clients. So I'm going to demo the tool in a bit. Before that, I would like to spend a couple minutes talking about its features, right? So H2S, it's an acronym for Hadoop to Snowflake, offers a free self-service analyzer to analyze your on-prem or cloud Hadoop environments and gives a detailed pre-migration report, right? So that you can look at it and then make a decision on how and if to use the tool, right? And tool also allows you to either migrate schema only or both schema and data migration, along with supporting incremental and full runs, right? Most importantly, it has robust validations built in to perform both source to target validations and any custom validations you want to define within the tool, right? As I said, like, the main objective of this tool is to accelerate, instead of the company spending, months and months just migrating, the goal is to do it in days to weeks. That's the main goal. So I'm gonna do a demo, and then after the demo, I'm gonna go into the underlying architecture because I'm fairly sure you guys are more interested in getting to see the product in action or the tool in action, as well as understanding all the low-level architecture details. So without wasting time, I'll open the tool. So this is how the tool looks like. It is, as I said before, our goal was to build a self-service tool without any complex, things like configurations or anything like that, right? So it's a simple web application that can be easily installed on your infrastructure wherever you are planning to do the migration on. And after you install, you just access a link in your browser, and it would open this interface. And in this interface, you see 4 main features on the left side. Okay? So I'll go through those 4 main features in action as well. They are called Analyzer, Start New, Restart, and Summary, right? So Analyzer is a free feature, as I said before. It would allow you to analyze your 1 or more Hadoop environments and give a very detailed report of your existing data lake as well as your data warehouse, right? Both Hive and Impala. So that is the Analyzer feature. Once you look at the Analyzer report, and once you decide on migrating, you can access a Start New feature, and Start New would allow you to migrate your Hadoop data as well as all your objects, right? Schema and data from your existing either on-prem or cloud environments to Snowflake. Okay? And Restart would allow you to incrementally migrate already migrated data, right? For example, you might have done the migration today, and then tomorrow you might have new data arrived in your legacy Hadoop environment, right? So if you need to migrate that additional new data, you can leverage this Restart feature. And then the last one is a summary. So summary is, it will show you it will allow you to monitor the progress of your migration, as well as it would allow you to, after the migration is complete, it would show all the objects that were migrated and all the validations that were performed, so that you get the confidence that everything is moved appropriately, right? So I will show you the simple analyzer first. We have set up a demo environment so that you can see how it looks. I would need a few details here. One is the Hive metastore URL, so that we can scan the environment, and the Hive URL. And some companies do have stored procedures written in Hadoop environment. I know it's not very popular, but we have seen some companies that have written stored procedures, leveraging HPL SQL. It's an open source library that's available. As an extension, you can add on your Hadoop environment and then run, create stored procedures and run them, right? So for such companies where you have, stored procedures, we allow them, this tool does support to auto migrate them. Okay? And if your Hadoop environment is Kerberized, you can use this feature as well. You can provide some additional details about your key tab location and all, and it would migrate your Kerberized as well, leveraging that key tab file. Okay? So as I said, all it needs is 3 simple parameters: Hive meta store, the regular JDBC URL, and path to your stored procedures if there are any. And once I do that, I click analyze. And depending on the size of your Hadoop environment, it may take few seconds or few minutes. And once it is complete, it will give you a detailed report, right? So in our case, the environment that we have run is 59, right? Which is this 20659. It's an Hadoop environment deployed in AWS EMR cluster. And once I open it, you would see this very detailed report. So the first tab is the overview tab, where it shows very important metric, 86%, meaning using the H2S accelerator, you would be able to auto migrate 86% of your objects and data from your Hadoop environment to Snowflake, right? It's a significant percentage, meaning instead of manually migrating 100% of it, we are pretty much covering 86% of it, meaning only 14% of it you would need to have some manual efforts to migrate, right? And it also shows how many objects were detected. When we say objects, the number of tables, views, user-defined functions, and stored procedures, right? And it also shows your data size lake. This is a small data lake that we have set up for this demo purposes, but generally we see the terabytes or petabytes kind of thing. And it also shows how much of the data can be automatically migrated, right? In this case, 100% can be migrated. And the reason why we are not seeing 100% for the overall migration is this particular Hadoop environment has user-defined functions. See here, like the 3 databases, 13 tables, 3 views, 3 user-defined functions, and 3 stored procedures, right? So the user-defined functions, as you know, it's they are either written in Java or C++ most of the time, Java for Hive and then C++ or Java for Impala, right? So until the Snowpark feature, as Jonathan covered, right? Snowflake is planning on releasing the Snowpark feature, which is a very powerful feature where Snowflake would allow you to natively run Java or Python or Scala on Snowflake Compute. So once that is released, we are planning to support migrating UDFs as well. But until then, it's a manual migration. So if you have any user-defined functions, you need to manually migrate them. Okay? So it also shows all the databases that we found, all the tables that we found. Not only tables, it also shows, for example, if I want to see the structure of this table, right? This partitions table, this is a table name, by the way. It also shows all the partitions the table has. We have detected two level partitions. Level 1 is state, level 2 is department. And it also shows all the columns that are in the table and its type, right? So very detailed report. And it also tells you what is the table type, whether it's Avro or ORC or Parquet or text, right? And then whether it's compressed or not, and whether it's migratable or not, right? So and its size as well. Okay, so everything it shows, and it also shows if there are any views in your environment, right? So along with the view definition, and as I said, user-defined functions as of now, tool doesn't support migrating them, auto migrating them. This would need manual migration, and then stored procedures. These are all the stored procedures we have detected in your environment, right? So tool will attempt to auto migrate simple to medium complex stored procedures. For highly complex stored procedures, which has some internal lot of function usage and a lot of business logic, right? It would need some manual effort, and it would tell beforehand itself whether it's migratable or not. Okay. So this is briefly about Analyzer. As I said, very detailed report. once you go through it and once you decide on performing the migration, you then come to start new, right? So I'll show you how the start new looks like. I pre-populated them just to save time in the demo. You see start new screen as 4 main sections in it. Okay, so one is you need to define your source details. Okay, so the nice thing is it will auto populate in the drop down like you see here. So whatever you have analyzed, it will pre-populate them here. And then along with that, you need to give all the source details, where is your HDFS located and what is your IPJDBC URL and stuff like that. And you also need to give the target details because you need to tell it where to copy the data from, right? Where to migrate the data to. In this case, Snowflake, I'm copying it to this particular JDBC URL, right? Azure East US2. And then to speed up the migration, our tool uses stages. So stages could be either AWS S3 bucket or an Azure ADLS Gen 2 container, right? So once you define your source, where you're migrating from, your stages and Snowflake, very, very easy to use. I mean, they're like, it's not like 1,000 inputs that you need to give. It's like barely 15 or so. You can start the migration, right? So one of the nice things we offer is the exclude database. I always recommend this as a best practice. You should use this opportunity to migrate once you decide, right, on migrating to Snowflake. You could use this opportunity to clean up any of the staging or test or such tables in your source environment, right? So this this section allows you to define multiple such things. If you have any databases that you want to exclude or any tables that you want to exclude, you can define them. You can define any number here and then click migrate, and then it will start migrating, right? And we made our tool highly modularized, meaning if you decide on migrating only schema from Hadoop to Snowflake, but not the data, right? So let's say if you decide on using AWS Snowball or Amazon, or the Azure data box, right, to migrate, you could just do schema export and schema import, and then you can leverage that other one of those other features, to migrate your data, right? So because this tool complements the other ways to do the data transfers. You can check one or more boxes, and then other really powerful feature is a sampling. If you want to sample, if you want to just do a test, meaning you don't want to copy all 100% of your data, but you just want to copy, let's say 10% of it, right? To see how the target looks once the migration is done, we allow it. You just need to click on sampling and then key in whatever sampling percentage that you want, right? And once all of this is given, you just click on migrate. And once this migration, as you know, may take hours or minutes or days, right? Based on the size of your data. So we do it asynchronously, and we leverage Airflow to do that. Okay? I'll walk you guys through the architecture in a bit. So it starts an Airflow job, and then it gives you a track URL, and clicking on it would show the progress of it. So these are all the steps that internally happen, like schema export, data export, schema import, data import, migration results, and validations. So it will take a few minutes in this case to move all of the schema and the data objects from source to target. Yeah? So once it is submitted, you can come to the summary screen and then see the progress of it. In this case, you see it's showing in progress. And then you can always track from here as well. You don't need to bookmark this, or you don't need to remember this URL. You can always come to the summary screen and then see it in action, right? So given, this may take a few minutes for it to transfer, moving to stage and then stage to thing, right? So I'll show one of the previously run jobs. That way you get to see how it looks, how the summary migration result summary screen looks, right? We'll give it a, yeah. So this is how it looks. So we show all the databases that were migrated, including its sizes, and the tables within each of those databases. And one of the powerful features is the status. Okay. So, and also we show how many rows are in the source and how many are in the target, right? Along with the status of each of that. For example, if I want to see why this particular table called CSV_details in the default database has failed, I can click on it and it shows detailed metrics on why the validation failed, right? So you can see we picked one column called first name in both source and target. We ran a query on the source on Hive, and then we captured the count. And we also ran the same query on the Snowflake, right? And the counts are not matching. So that means something didn't go right. So that's why we say, you know, validation is failed. Even though migration is complete, this table got successfully migrated. Something, I mean, the counts, the validation routines didn't pass. Okay? So we show all those detailed metrics here. Okay? And we also show the views, whether they're migrated or not. So once a migration is complete, you would see, once you log into Snowflake with the proper role, right? Either sysadmin or account admin, whatever you used for the migration, you would be able to see all the tables and databases created. In this case, default larger files and nested JSONs were the databases. If you see here, default larger files and nested JSON. So all these three gets created here. Okay. So, and then you would also see all the tables here. So these are all the tables under default. There were Avro, partitions, tweets, ORC, Parquet, CSV. There are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 tables here. So all those 6 tables you can see here. And not only that, you can, I mean, like you can fetch the number of, I mean, you can preview the data and do all of that, right? So these are all migrated from Hadoop to, you know, yeah. And then same thing, Avro, CSV, ORC, Parquet, all these are the tables, and 2 other databases, larger files, you can see here, line item. This is a fairly large table, and the nested JSON as well. You know? So these are all successfully migrated, right? So that's briefly about the tool. As I said before, our goal was to make it self-serve, push button kind of accelerator, right? Without, you know, spending a lot of time configuring and, you know, tuning and stuff like that. Okay? So coming back to the, I know, like, you know, most of you guys maybe, in case if you want to, if you're, you know, curious on how we have implemented this, right? So as you can see, it is a 3-tier architecture. You know? So with front end built in React.js, backend processes built in Java, orchestrated by Airflow, right? And migration metrics stored in Postgres, right? Which is the bottom layer, right here. So backend processes, which is where, I mean, most of the secret sauce, I should say, are, you know, most of the heavy lifting happens, right? It is modularized into 4 main pieces, you know. So the first one is a schema export, the next one is schema import, then data export and data import, right? This modularization is a key part of the architecture. This allows us to run only the required modules. Like, as I said, right, like if you want to complement this tool, or even your solution that if you want to build, right, with Azure Data Box or AWS Snowball or any of those other data migrations, right, this modularization would allow, meaning it will allow you to run only schema export or only schema import or only data export or data import, right? Or pick and choose a combination of schema export and data import, right? Like that, right? So this allows you to do that. Okay? So the first part, the schema export, as the name says, it connects to the Hive meta store, it extracts the Hive schema out of it and translates it into a Snow DDL. Okay? So this, I should say, is a secret sauce. You know, so we did spend, a good amount of time and then brains into it in developing this translator to translate the Hive DDL into the Snowflake DDL, right? And once the DDL is generated, so schema import module connects to the destination Snowflake environment and executes its Snow DDL to create the schema. You know, And then once a schema is created, you can start exporting the data and importing to it, right? So data export is completely an optional step, as I said before. If you decide on using this tool to copy the data or move the data from source to target, data export will connect to the IO meta store, and it gets to know about the HDFS data locations and move them into the staging area first. It could be an AWS S3 container or, S3 bucket or ADLS Gen 2 container, right? As you can see, it manages it handles the managed tables and external tables differently, right? So for managed tables, it simply goes and picks the entire data lake, your HDFS, and copies that entire, I've warehouse data lake from Hadoop to your staging area, one of these two, right? Either Gen 2 or S3 bucket. But for external tables, your external tables could be scattered across several different places on your data lake, right? So on your HDFS. So the tool would go pick one table by table, and then it will check where it is located, underlying data. It will pick the data and then move it to the container, the staging container, right? So that's why it is handled differently. And then once the data is in the staging, then the data import can be triggered. And data import uses the fairly powerful feature of Snowflake called stages, right? So it uses external stages to iterate all the Snowflake entities, to populate all the Snowflake entities. It connects to this external stage, and then it creates external stage links, and then it issues copy into command, right? To copy all of the data into the target Snowflake environment, right? And after the data import is complete, you have ready to use Snowflake databases, right? Like as I showed in the console before. And most importantly, all the migration results, validation results, everything would be stored in a Postgres database, so that if we see any issues in the migration, we have one place to look for where the errors are and stuff like that, right? So obviously it is shown on the UI, the front end, but we can always, check in the Postgres database as well. Two ways to see it. Right? So this is the modularized architecture, and everything is orchestrated by Airflow here. So because we want, we used a robust data pipeline end to end to support restartability and stuff like that, right? So best practices. I know most of you may be looking for it, in case if you want to build the solution. There are a lot of them, but we listed only the most important ones. When it comes to do's, use Snowflake stages for the initial / full loads. So for the people on the call that know Snowflake already, the power of stages. It's a very, very quick way to load the data into your warehouse, right? Or into the Snowflake data platform, right? And use Snowpipe for incremental loads, because Snowpipe is also a very powerful feature. I would suggest not to use Snowpipe for initial and full loads, because Snowpipe could make your job slower if you are planning to move lots and lots of data in the scale of terabytes, right? So use Snowpipe only for incremental loads, because you get that benefit of change data capture at file level, right? And the third feature, we do not have it, the integration with catalogs in the tool. We are planning on building it in our roadmap, but this is something that we recommend. So when you are doing this migration, at the same time, build integration with catalogs, like either a Glue or Azure Data Catalog, or Alation or Calibra or Talent kind of data catalog, right? So that way you could leverage this opportunity to build a catalog of all the data sets that are going to reside on your lake and the Snowflake data platform, right? And this would allow your data analysts or data scientists or or data stewards, right? So to leverage your data in a more optimized way, right? And also govern in a more optimized way, right? And given Hadoop is a file-based system, always use file-based transfers. Don't use row-level transfer because it's going to be a very, very long and painstaking process if you're going to go at a row-level kind of transfer, right? And always build robust validations to ensure data is copied properly, and always do parallel runs. So it's not like you can move the data and the next day you can pull the plug on your legacy environment, right? So at least do, for a few weeks or maybe a month kind of thing, do a parallel run until the confidence is built. Okay? And migrate in stages. This is one of my favorites. So I would not recommend, in Anblicks as well, we wouldn't recommend a big bang approach of migrating and optimizing your data model in one shot, because it could slow down your go-to market, right? Your business deliverables could be slowed down. And also it would have a major impact on all your downstream and upstream applications, right? Downstream could be your ETL jobs, pumping the data into your, Snowflake environment, or upstream like APIs or reporting layer consuming the data, right? So those all would be broken. So instead, take a lift and shift. That way you can just repoint your ETL jobs and reporting layer and API layer to the new Snowflake environment. And then in phase 2, you can always do the optimizations, right? And coming to the don'ts, avoid using JDBC to copy large volumes of data. I know I've seen in a few companies, you would be tempted to use some of the legacy, some of the traditional ETL tools to migrate terabyte to petabyte size data, data lakes from Hadoop to Snowflake. It could be an expensive proposition going that route. Instead, always use a file level transfer, because Hadoop is a file-based system, right? And you can always use JDBC for incremental loads if you want, right? But for the initial or full load, use the file-based, leveraging the stages feature, and avoid using SnowPipe for initial and full loads, and then use this as an opportunity to clean up all your stage, test, and broken objects, in your legacy big data platform. Okay? So coming to the engagement process, I'll just speed it up because I know we only have 15 more minutes. So a typical Hadoop to Snowflake migration project would involve roughly 7 to 8 steps, right? The first step is analyze your current Hadoop usage and run the free analyzer kind of thing to analyze how much of it can be auto migrated versus how much of it would need manual migration, right? And then once you analyze it and once you decide on migrating, provision and configure your Snowflake account, leveraging either Snowflake console or the CLI. You can create all the users, accounts, and warehouses. And once it is done, you can migrate the schema. You can leverage an accelerator like H2S to migrate majority of them. And some of the things that cannot be migrated, like user-defined functions, can be manually migrated through your development team or the professional services. And migrate the data, right? So here you have multiple options. Either you can leverage Azure Express Route or AWS Direct Connection in conjunction with an accelerator to migrate the data, or alternatively you can always ship your data, right, through Databox or Snowball. And data ingestion, this is where your ETL jobs, right? You can repoint them once a migration is complete to write the data to Snowflake instead of the Hadoop environment, right? And then for APIs, all the APIs and reporting and analytical tools should be modified and reconnected to the Snowflake environment. And parallel run, this is important to instill confidence, side-by-side comparison of the legacy data results and Snowflake results, right? So it is extremely important to verify data was moved successfully, so that the data, because if we do not move the data properly, from the technology team side, we may think we are done with the data movement, but then when the business users start using them, they would see all these data quality issues and stuff like that, and then they will lose confidence on the new platform, right? So we don't want that to happen. So robust validation is very, very important. And then finally, decommission of Hadoop, right? So you can inform all your Hadoop users about their Snowflake accounts and then turn off all your Hadoop processes, right? And revoke access. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just summarizing the key takeaways. So the accelerator is a push button solution to migrate in Hadoop IBM Impala databases to Snowflake. And it supports both schema only and schema and data migration. And the most important benefit is you could save a lot of time and money, by using the accelerator, right? So instead of doing it manually or trying to build a solution internally, right? So compared to both the options, this would fast track it. And benefits of migrating from Hadoop to Snowflake: near zero maintenance, awesome feature of Snowflake. And at the end of the day, we as technologists are there to help business, right? Because without them, we are not there, right? So we are there to make better, quicker business decisions, right? So Snowflake would allow you to make in this fast-moving, world, right? I mean, it will allow you to make better, quicker business decisions. And the third important takeaway is you can reduce the cost of scaling, right? You don't need to invest a lot of money upfront in procuring your hardware and then waiting for 6 months for the hardware to be ready and stuff like that. So it's like in seconds, it would be up and running kind of thing.